get things going. Bien, y muy buenos días. Feliz miércoles, happy Wednesday. ¿Y cómo están todos? ¿Están bien? ¿Sí? All good?
Sí.
Bueno, fantástico. I want to start out with a little thing. My long-awaited, I had to make this appointment 5 months ago. Annual appointment is next week, Wednesday at 9. So if I'm on, say, I don't think I'll be home any later than 10:15. But if I'm a little late next week starting, just hang in there and I'll make up the minutes afterwards. But para que sepan, so you guys know, this is one of those crazy things because I had to wait for a simple annual appointment for 5 months. I dare not delay that appointment. So I'm only 5 minutes away from the office, but just in case it runs overtime or starts late, just so you know, I'll put out a little reminder with the email next week. Bueno, vamos a practicar. Esta semana vamos a practicar mucho con el subjuntivo. We're gonna do a lot actually of practice with our subjunctive stuff. I am setting up my screen so I can get this going a little bit better. Para que sepan, just so you know, I'm just gonna show this. We're certainly not gonna play all 14 minutes. You have this video, right?
See.
He's kind of challenging to understand. I do recognize that. So if you felt again like it was sort of the fire hose, you're not entirely wrong. But I do want to ask, just starting out, what kind of questions you might have had about that video. Any, first of all, did having the list of vocab help you follow along with the vocab and the subtitles? Was that useful for you?
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah. With a lot of videos I send you, I don't necessarily need to do that because they'll have very good subtitle captions. But with this one, he primarily posts to everybody in the Spanish-speaking world. And because he's very young, he speaks in a lot of slang. And so it can be a real challenge. If you felt that it was a challenge to follow him, that's okay. But once in a while, it's good for you to have a challenge. I hate to say. And it was a cute and interesting video. And actually, a lot of times he goes faster than that. So this was a more manageable one to hear. Do you have any questions on terms he used or things he was talking about, or
No.
or something he talked about and I didn't get this? No? Bien? Kind of an interesting set of or interesting bit of information.
Now, I somehow got started in the next video.
Oh,
And I don't know, was he saying that the market where he used to go was the wet market where COVID began?
Well, yeah, he thinks.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw that one as well. Yeah. Okay, so Luisito, para que sepan, so that you guys know, Luisito is incredibly popular on YouTube to the point where really people will stop him on the street and kind of almost mob him. People in the Spanish-speaking world know Luisito. He travels everywhere. And he's been doing this for a number of years. He just hit 30. And well, I guess an income from YouTube, if it gets good enough, helps pay for that. So anyway, yeah, he's had experience before traveling in China, and he had traveled there. That was one of the many places he goes to. And he had been there before COVID and after. He was noticing the differences in the markets and the way they're set up. But, you know, he's only been able to get back in since they've opened up. So he wanted to see how it was different since the pre-COVID times, when he could not get back in there. Yeah. Okay. Bien. Okay. Vamos a ver. Let's take a quick look. I want to share some of our little prompts regarding the video with you guys to see if we can use some subjunctive to talk about this. Ideas relajadas al video de los abuelitos de China. And when they say abuelitos, it's little grandparents, yeah. But abuelito is always seen as definitely a term of endearment, to speak about and a respectful way to talk, and an affectionate way to talk about grandmas and grandpas. Let's see if we can fill in some ideas here. Es importante que los viejitos.
I had se despierten a las 6 de la mañana.
Ah, se despierten. Se despierten a las 6 de la mañana. Bien, se despierten. Subjuntivo. And what makes us do this? It's the es importante que, right? Sí, es importante que. Otras ideas.
Hagan ejercicios todos los días.
Hagan ejercicio. Hagan ejercicio todos los días. Sí, perfecto. Muy bien, muy bien. I'm maybe going to create a new page here so we can fit in all of our answers here. Otras ideas. Any other ideas?
Es importante que los viejitos tengan interacción social.
Tengan interacciones sociales. Sí, muy importante. Buena idea, buena idea. Me gusta mucho. I like that a lot. Fantástico. Otra idea.
Es importante que los viejitos permanezcan activos. Permanezcan activos. To stay active.
Oh, okay. Okay. Stay is a hard word to translate, isn't it? This is probably the easiest one to use. Se mantengan activos. Sí. Estén. We can even keep it to this. Oh, it booted me out of my keyboard. Momentito. Estén activos. Algo así. Yeah, there'd be a number of ways to do it. Yeah, se mantengan. Keep themselves. To stay or keep oneself. Okay, por ejemplo, se mantengan en forma would be stay in shape. So stay active could be say, but mantenerse is to maintain yourself. That means to keep yourself in a certain state. Okay, so you can pop in any kind of description really after the form of mantenerse. Yeah. Okay, bien. Muy buenas ideas, muy buenas ideas. Vamos a ver. Al envejecer, as we get older, literally upon getting old. Okay, but remember when we've got al, we need to keep the verb in infinitive form there. But now we've got an ojalá que, hopefully, right? The hopefully idea. Al envejecer, ojalá que.
Mantengamos la flexibilidad.
Mantengamos la flexibilidad. Eso me gusta. Sí, bien. Otra idea. Y es buena idea. Here, this is one of those things of, this really lends itself to a nosotros form, doesn't it? Because we're all getting old. Okay. Mantengamos la flexibilidad. Otra idea.
Yo puedo mover bien.
Oh, otra vez, perdón.
Yo puedo mover bien.
Que pueda moverse bien.
I wondered if it was reflexive.
¿Por qué? This is a good little snippet. And here we could really say it as, sí, pueda moverse bien. Moverse es move a part of one's body. Okay. Mover by itself would be like you're shoving a box to the other side of the room, right? Mover would talk about a machine making a motion or taking an item and putting it in a different place. But moverse is what we use when we talk about moving our parts of our body, moving well. Buena idea. Otra idea aquí.
I said permanezamos, to remain, permanezamos fuerte.
Okay.
I don't know that, I haven't heard that verb before, but I tried it. I don't know if that's right.
Sí, bien. Yeah, that permanecer. Let me see if I can pop up a permanecer to kind of show you. I'll see if I can show you some ideas. I'm going to pop this into our window. Let's take a look at this idea of permanecer and how they define it and how they use it. So what I want to do is to show you the context use. El teatro permanecerá cerrado. The theater will stay closed. Let's look at this quedarse en un lugar, remain or stay. Permanecer, yeah, remain in France, that might be. Okay, let's, what I want to do is show you some different tools you might use with this stay. Stay is often translated as quedarse, stay here. Bien. Yeah. Pasar for staying physically, or quedarse for staying physically. Yeah. Bien. So, you know, this word reference I really, really like as, well, stay as in corset. You know, you can't use that one, can you? Yeah.
No.
Your idea was staying, perdón.
Strong, fuerte.
Strong. Here is one word that would work quite well also, seguir, because that idea of staying strong ties into the idea of endurance. Yeah. Seguir, sí. Sigamos fuertes.
I see, that makes more sense.
Stay is a very difficult word to translate in Spanish into English. But one of the very, very key things when we talk about staying, this mantenerse is often used for staying.
And if I wanted to
Uh,
use seguir, it'd be just S-E-G-U-A, seguir.
sigamos, sigamos, sigamos. But mantener is always a very, very helpful thing with staying strong, staying healthy, staying flexible, because when we talk about the idea of stay with health, often it's translated as mantenerse, or it might be seguir. So it might look like this, sigamos, sigamos, or nos mantengamos.
Is that like maintain? Maintain?
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
like maintain. Yeah. So you're
Give
talking
some
about
root.
staying strong, staying flexible, staying healthy, staying in shape, which is en forma, usually. I've even heard people, especially in Mexican flavors of Spanish, using fit, although that's kind of a Spanglish thing, but once in a while you do hear it with younger folks, because staying fit is a thing. But this no tengamos is a really helpful thing to use for staying in shape, staying flexible, staying in a certain physical state.
Mm.
Yeah, is often mantenerse, ¿sí? Ojalá que, ojalá que estemos en contacto con, con el médico. That we stay in touch with the doctor. Ojalá que
Todavía salgamos con nuestros amigos.
que sí, qué buena idea, sí, que todavía salgamos con nuestros amigos. Qué buena idea, that we still go out with our friends. Fantástico. Que ojalá que comamos comida saludable.
Eat healthy.
O que sigamos una dieta saludable.
Oh,
Eating well. Seguir una dieta, following a diet, is often, that's a term that is used with eating a certain way. Seguir una dieta. Seguir una dieta vegetariana. Así. Okay.
on
Seguir.
that word estemos, I'm looking at my notes. Does that need to have an accent over that second E?
No, buena pregunta. No, the nosotros form never needs an accent because that obeys the general way that stress forms. Words that end in a vowel or N or S, and here this one ends in
Oh,
S. They naturally stress second to last syllable.
oh,
That would
okay.
be this one. And that follows the general pattern. The way we say it follows that general pattern of we punch the second to last syllable because it ends in an S, that word. And therefore, I don't need to write in an accent mark.
All right. On his
Okay, so-
video, I think he said all of those had him. But he probably didn't
Not the
mean
nos-
that.
Yeah, not the nosotros here. No. Yeah, not in this situation. No. Bien, bien. let's grab another one here. Perdón. En las ciudades en China, los ancianos se reúnen en el parque para. Now let's take a look at this one. Es otra cosa. En las ciudades de China, los ancianos se reúnen en el parque para. Do I need subjunctive here?
No,
No. ¿Por qué no?
think
Why
so.
not?
it doesn't follow, there's no K, it's not an impersonal, it's,
Yeah, there's no K in here. So they get together in order to. Here the para means in order to. And therefore, we only need an infinitive. So what could we fill in here?
Jugar las cartas. Las cartas.
Sí, okay. Para estar juntos, para hacer ejercicio. Sí,
para tener conversaciones.
para tener conversaciones, para
Para
Y jugar.
o para bailar
Y jugar.
y jugar, para jugar.
Para renovar sus mentes y cuerpos.
Sí, sí, exacto, exacto. Hay muchas posibilidades aquí, ¿sí? Pero todos con infinitivos. So this was set up to show you that if I don't have para qué, just plain old para, all we need is an infinitive, right? We're not at what comes after para is just telling what los ancianos, the old folks, are doing on their own. And after para, then para is just acting as a preposition, and all I need is an infinitive to talk about that particular activity. Okay, no creo que. And here we're practicing one of our triggers. No creo que is a trigger. And we're going to have to be quite rigorous with this trigger to always plug in a subjunctive after no creo que. If you're saying no creo que, the reason why it needs subjunctive, in the Spanish-speaking mind, you're saying that you think this situation does not exist. And for an action that does not really exist in real time, in Spanish, we have to use subjunctive. That's the way the language works. So, no creo que los ancianos en China
Vean
Comen-
mucho televisión.
vean la televisión.
Yeah, said mucho. Yeah.
Vean mucho la televisión, vean mucho, watch it a lot, o quizás, or maybe demasiado, too much, right? Any of those ideas, vean mucho o vean demasiado la televisión. No creo que los ancianos en China, otra idea.
Comen un di. Oh,
No,
who goes
So-
first?
tomen? Yeah, and I'm sorry, I can't see you because I've got my share screen
Okay.
on.
Comen una dieta insalubre.
Coman. Here we need a coman, right? It can't be comen. Comen una dieta.
Insalubre, unhealthy,
Oh, okay.
or
una-
poco saludable.
Insaludable.
Okay.
A hard word to pronounce. Insaludable, unhealthy. Insaludable, see? O poco saludable.
Right.
Poco is often poco saludable. with very little nutritional value. Okay, that might be phrased that way. Bueno, otra idea.
Paguen mucho dinero para ejercicio.
Oh,
Paguen. Paguen.
paguen.
Paguen.
Paguen.
Paguen
Paguen
mucho
mu-
dinero para ejercicio.
Para el ejercicio. Sí, aquí en Estados Unidos,
Ah,
si tú vas a un gimnasio formal, entonces hay que pagar. Bien, sí. Sí. Paguen. And here's one of the things we had in our short videos on those funny spelling changes.
yeah.
Pagar is not really what you would call an irregular verb, but it has a spelling change, okay, to go into subjunctive. The verbs that end in car, C-A-R, gar, G-A-R, zar, Z-A-R, have a little spelling change to get to the subjunctive. You pronounce it like you think you should, it just needs a little spelling tweak here, and that's our spelling tweak, right? That U has to go in to get the G back. Okay, so, por ejemplo, if I were to take that U out, I would no longer be able to pronounce this word as paguen. Yeah, it would have to be pagen. And I don't want to sound like pagen, because the original verb, we always look back to the original infinitive to see what sounds do I want to preserve when I go into the various forms as I conjugate it. And the original form is pagar, ga. So in order to keep that ga sound, the very simple little thing is I just pop in that ooh, which doesn't get pronounced anyway, but it forces me to go back to a g sound. So that's why that happens. Yeah. Paguen. Okay. Bueno.
Is that one of the few places where you don't pronounce a letter?
Right. There are really in Spanish only two. Let me pop this on a different way. There are only two things generally that happen for, I hope I'm saying this right, two that come to mind in the whole silent letter thing. And this happens because Spanish is such a highly phonetic language. Bien, so, por ejemplo, that H is just always silent, right? Always silent. The only way it goes into a sound if it is in that CH combo, right? Okay, so that one's pretty easy to handle, right? That the H is always silent. But this U is sometimes silent, but not always. And the U often has a job to do. Okay. And this comes into play very, very often with verb conjugations, right? All of the verbs that are the gar verbs, yeah. What happens is in certain conjugations, if I wind up needing an with that GE combination because of the GAR type verbs, sometimes even the GUIR type verbs, but yeah. If I want to preserve this G, if that's part of the, integral part of it being an infinitive, in order to, use this kind of combination in things like commands, in things like subjunctive, or sometimes even in preterite, those yo forms, I need to have the U has a job, and the job of the U is to stand there and make no sound, but to just go there so that the G gets back to the hard G sound. So U gets this job.
Does the
Everyone's-
U sometimes work with diphthongs like antiquo? Is a U sound in there?
Oh, like
Antiguo?
antiguo?
Antiguo.
Like
Ancient?
that word, antiguo?
Antiguo.
That's not a verb, antiguo, ancient
Yes.
or antique, but ancient usually, antiguo. There, the UO is, okay. Here, we would call this a diphthong because it's two vowels sitting next to each other, and I'm not pronouncing the U, any harder than the O. The two sounds should blend together and get about the same amount of stress. They should blend together to form one sound as much as they can. Antiguo. Antiguo. And yeah, this you would call a diphthong. You notice, however, if we're talking about a U, especially in verbs, this will happen, like se reúne. Now I am taking those two vowels, and instead of blending them together perfectly, I'm telling you, oops, one of these needs to be punched a little harder. Se reúne. So when you see an accent mark written down, and you may not be able to distinguish this as well hearing it, unless you've done some reading to know that, but this punches one of the two vowel sounds a little bit harder than the other. So that can happen. It's not a big deal for everyday speaking, but it does happen. Okay. A ver. Let's take a quick look at our next prompt. I will pull this up. Creo que los ancianos chinos. I think that the elderly Chinese. And now notice that no creo que, I need subjunctive. I really have to do that. But creo que is going to do the exact opposite. Creo que tells you certainty. So, don't overthink this. Don't think of this in terms of mathematical certainty. Creo que, well, he thinks that that's true, but is it? Don't overthink it. Creo que just uses indicative. Creo que is saying, I am establishing in my own mind, and that's good enough, certainty. So, creo que los ancianos chinos, we need indicativo, plain old present tense.
Son muy fuerte.
Bien, okay, otra vez con el verbo, one more time with the verb.
Son muy fuerte.
Son fuertes. They're strong. Creo que los ancianos chinos son fuertes, sí.
Son felices.
Son,
Felices.
you could express this as either son felices are a happy group of people, or you could express it as they feel happy, estén felices. There's just a little nuance there. Son felices would say are happy people in general, and estén felices that they feel happy. So it depends on what you mean. That could be expressed either way.
But wait, I
Bueno.
don't want to stand, do I? Because that's ESTEN, that's subjunctive, isn't it?
Oh, perdón. Gracias. Sí, están. I'm thinking on my top. Gracias. Thank you. Están felices. ¿Qué más? What else?
Disfruten de la vida.
Disfrutan. Disfrutan de la vida. Enjoy life. Excelente. Sí, sí, sí. Disfrutan de la vida. They just have a good time. See? They enjoy life. They make the most out of life. Make the most out of can be expressed as disfrutan de. Perfecto. Bueno. Creo que los ancianos chinos tienen oportunidades para hacer ejercicio. Bien, ¿sí? Así. Kind of like that. Bien, bien. A ver, bueno, ok. Aquí vamos a hablar de específicamente, a nuestra ciudad, la ciudad de Scottsdale, les ofrece clase a ustedes para qué. And now we have not just a but a para qué.
Mhm.
And notice I'm talking about Scottsdale doing something so that
You have
somebody else
different-
can do something.
Yeah, Scottsdale versus us.
Sí, exacto.
Pueden aprender muchas cosas.
Para que puedan aprender muchas cosas.
Continúen aprender. Sorry.
Sí, sí, sí. Continúen a
Aprender.
aprender.
Sí.
Excelente.
Why did you put
Disfrut-
the A in there?
It's just one of those verbs that needs that little Yeah.
Okay.
Disfruten de la vida en la jubilación.
Disfruten de la vida durante la jubilación. Yeah, enjoy retirement life. Enjoy life in retirement. Fantástico. Muy bien, muy bien. Bueno, excelente. Muy buenas ideas. Good ideas based on that little video. Okay. Fantástico. Bueno, ¿hay otras ideas o hay alguna pregunta de una cosita? Any question about some little thing there? You guys are doing really, really well with this. I'm trying to limit our subjunctive to just these same triggers that he gave us last week so that, you know, the more examples you see just with these triggers, the more you get that repetition and it will start to feel a little more normal. So here again are the triggers that we had, and we wanted to limit our experience with subjunctive just to these. And the reason being is that these were in our video. And the reason they were in that video is that these are things you hear people say a lot. And we want to take, let's say, not the more obscure, because there are obscure uses of subjunctive, but to take examples of subjunctive that you actually will hear people use a lot in a typical conversation. Bien. Okay.
Carolyn, I had a question about a menos que. So this is a sentence that I came up with. No miro Lucino a menos que sea necesario para la clase español.
Sí.
Because
Menos que sea.
I'm not watching, and I'm also referring to myself after menos que. So would that be
Right.
subjunctive or
A
not?
menos que still, right. You're right. A menos que will need subjunctive, no matter what.
Okay.
No matter what. Yeah. A menos que is one of those triggers that when I taught subjunctive with high school kids who are doing this basically to meet university requirements. We kind of do things more the traditional way, and that is the kids learn, here are verbs that trigger subjunctive. But verbs are not the only thing that trigger subjunctive. So I'll give you an example. Actually, one of the verbs you have that triggers subjunctive is this no creo que business. But this is a little different approach than what I used to traditionally do. Dudo que is another thing that is a verb that triggers. You know, this is the whole phrase. Ojalá que isn't even a verb. A menos que is not a verb. Antes de que is not a verb. Para que is not a verb. These kind of things are called adverbial clauses. And that is just grammar speak. But what it means is, instead of saying, here are verbs that trigger it, and verbs that trigger it would be things like, I insist that you come on time. I insist. Or I want that you should leave by 8 o'clock. Certain verbs of wanting something to happen, wishing that something should happen, insisting, demanding. Certain verbs will trigger subjunctive, but these little puppies down here in blue, a menos que, antes de que, para que, are not verbs at all. They are just, you should look at them as chunks of words that, because of what they mean, unless, before, so that, these adverbial clauses all talk about situations where that action following isn't really happening yet. Okay, unless you give me the money. Well, you haven't given me the money yet. So unless is talking about an activity that hasn't really happened. And anytime the action hasn't really happened, we need subjunctive, right? I'm telling you so that you know. You don't know yet. So that situation of knowing doesn't exist. We have to use subjunctive. The idea of before, well, if it's before, that means that activity hasn't happened. Subjunctive goes to the big idea of that action isn't really occurring. But the reason I plug these in is that in conversation, these little phrases come up a lot. They come up, they are high frequency chunks of words that create that need for using subjunctive. The idea of why we use subjunctive is very, very hard for the English speaker. We don't have that kind of setup. We don't use a similar kind of structure ever, okay?
A question, more of a cultural question, is this widespread use of subjunctive just Spanish, or is it Romance languages?
It happens in French. I believe it happens in German. Did my daughter tell me it happens? Don't take me for 100% on that. I would assume because it happens in French, it probably happens in Italian. Yeah. I'm not sure how many languages, because I don't really have a degree in linguistics. I can't tell you for sure. And now I'm going to go just a little bit deeper and tell you, in French, I think there are some situations where some similar things might not trigger it in French the way it does in Spanish. So in other words, the rules of why you use subjunctive might morph a little bit from one language to another. But for example, a French speaker would not find it at all odd that, oh, here are things, oh yes, I have a similar experience with my native language. So, yeah, other languages do things like do have a subjunctive. And technically you'll even hear people saying, well, English does have a subjunctive, but yeah, we do, but
The only one I know is if I were king.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's the classic one.
That's it. That's a classic. If I were you, I wouldn't do that. Well, I'm not you. And
But
that
it's
is
fallen out of use.
yeah, and it has fallen out of use.
Oh,
And
Said if I was
exactly
you,
right.
yeah.
Mm.
There are people
maybe.
who don't bother with that anymore, even.
Hmm.
So yeah, so English is in an oddball situation when we learn this structure. We don't have a good thing to hold on to mentally to make a comparison. That's what happens. So what you just have to do is to learn, well, here's when I use it. And honestly, there are so many things that can trigger subjunctive that the reason this guy made this original video with these, the reason for him making the video with these ideas as, hey, just get to know that these are triggers, is that there are so many of them. If you're learning it, it becomes overwhelming. So let's distill it. We can distill it down to, here are some really common things that people are going to say in everyday conversation that you will hear a lot. So we want to take the kinds of triggers that you hear a lot and teach you them early on so that they're not a shock, so that they're not a surprise, so that you can start to use it. Okay. And therefore you will be, it'll be easier for people to understand you. It'll be easier for you to understand what they're saying. And that's why we do that. There are many, many more triggers. We'll get into a few more at a later date, but it's got to kind of be poco a poco. If you really get a few nailed down early on, it makes it easier to extend that and say, well, here are a few more things that will require subjunctive, and to take it in little bits is easier than the whole fire hose. Yeah, immediately. Okay.
Marilyn, a few minutes ago, you were talking about one of these triggers and you said it always uses subjunctive. And then you were distinguishing, I think you were distinguishing that between what you had taken us through last week, which was when the subject isn't changing, that you don't use subjunctive. So could you maybe take a couple of minutes and review that concept of when the subject doesn't change, you don't use subjunctive, and kind of what the exception was here?
See. And there are probably a couple of situations.
Because I didn't get Lori's sentence there. Maybe she could say it again.
Sure. No miro Lucino a menos que sea necesario para la clase español.
Unless
I
it's
don't-
necessary.
I don't want to watch Lucino unless it's necessary for Spanish class. No me
Sí.
gusta.
See,
Demasiado joven.
yeah, he's Luisito is an acquired taste. Okay. Bien. Let's take a look at some of this. And I'm gonna plug this in here in this same set that you had your homework in, so that I don't have it. You know, if you've got this link, you'll see it today, you'll see it later, whenever. Okay, I'm gonna keep it all together. Let's take an example again with, and even, I think I can go back to this. Yeah. No. Okay. Okay. Let me give you Let me give you another situation where this idea of change of subject becomes important, and this will be an easy one to think about. Change of subject. Por ejemplo, quiero nadar. I want to swim. Bien, okay. Quiero nadar. Who wants to do the swimming?
I do.
Same person who's talking, right? So it could be quiero nadar, queremos nadar, los niños quieren nadar. When I've got the verb want, if that one person wants to do the activity, there is no need at all for a subjunctive, ever, right? I want to swim, they want to swim, we want to swim. The person who wants it is planning on doing that action. There's never a need to use subjunctive with querer when I am only talking about a single human being. But when I flip that, because this is an easy one to show you for, quiero que mi nieto nade bien. Or maybe quiero que mi nieto, I want my grandkid, quiero que mi nieto aprenda a nadar. I want my
Learn to swim.
I want my grandkid to learn to swim. Now I need a subjunctive. And there are two things you can think about. One is whenever you hear quiero que versus just quiero. The que is kind of the que here, when you hear somebody speaking there, that is kind of, or that's a red flag. Quiero que means watch out, I'm going to have a new person coming in here. Quiero, I'm talking about yo, but now I've got new person, mi nieto. And when I introduce a new person into the mix, that means I've got to plug in what we think of as subjunctive, okay? This idea of quiero que mi nieto nade or quiero que mi nieto aprenda a nadar, we're introducing a second human being. I want something to happen. I want that state to exist. I want that activity to happen. But that thing of my grandkid knowing how to swim isn't really a part of reality yet. He's in kind of a limbo. He doesn't know at all how to swim. He can't swim. In fact, he can't swim. Throw him in the pool, he'll drown. And because he doesn't really know this, he can't really do this action yet. He's not doing this action yet. That's got to be in subjunctive. So the que is a red flag word that says, here comes another human being. I'm going to throw out a different person who is not yo. It's a different person. So this idea of querer, with querer, when I don't introduce a new human being, I don't need the word que, and I don't need to do anything special with that second verb. It just stays an infinitive.
And I asked about that one, though, a simple question. Why is that not quiero a nadar, the way the last sentence ends with a nadar?
Oh, why isn't it Why is there no a?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about this here?
Well, the first one compared to the last one. One uses it, one doesn't.
Well, one one uses an a because aprender is one of the verbs that needs an a
Oh,
with the second infinitive. I could change it to this. Quiero que mi nieto pueda nadar. I want that my grandkid is able to swim. I want that he can swim. That sounds weird in English, right? But somebody could express it that way. Poder doesn't need, when I match, when I pair up poder conjugated with a second verb, that second verb just comes right after. Aprender needs that little word it just does.
because
Like-
to learn to.
Yeah, it's like voy a nadar. Voy a needs an a. Te enseño a nadar. I'll teach you to swim. Te enseño a nadar. I'll teach you to swim. Enseñar needs an a. Certain verbs need, this is a preposition thing, not a conjugation thing. Certain verbs, when you pair it up with a second infinitive, just need that little word and you just need to get a feel for which ones don't. Yeah. Bien, okay.
Can I throw let me throw an English sentence out here because I'm not sure I'm hitting what I think we talked about, feels like last week. So let me try with this example of where I'm going to use one of these triggers, at least in English, but it's the same subject on both sides of the trigger. So try this, like, I won't go to the park unless I finish my homework. And
Okay.
so I've got, the subject is I, or he, or you, you won't go to the park unless you finish your homework. So I'm doing my best to stay with one subject, and I'm wondering if there's a subjunctive needed anywhere in that sentence.
Okay. Buena pregunta. Good question. Let's take a look at that. Yeah. Because change of subject is often mentioned as a necessity. Here with querer, you really have to have a change of subject. But the a menos que that starts to change up a little bit. No voy al parque a menos que termine mi trabajo. I'm not going to the park unless I finish my work. In fact, I haven't done this activity yet. And the a menos que is just going to, by the nature of what it means, unless means whatever is coming up later has not yet happened. So even though I don't have a change of subject, it's an appropriate thing to use subjunctive there.
Mm-hmm.
See, that works. A menos que is a trigger we have for subjunctive. Sí, exacto, exactly right. You do use subjunctive there. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
that sentence only.
Yeah, for that sentence only. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the way it is. Yeah. With certain verbs that fall into the trigger category, you need two different subjects. This a menos que is an adverbial trigger, and it just, yeah, it just needs subjunctive. It's a red flag right away. Sometimes you will have a change of subject. So let me tweak this a little bit, because this is something somebody may phrase it a different way, and it may come out this way. But it's the al parque. I forgot my al parque. Of course, people always phrase things different ways, don't they? No voy al parque a menos que haya tiempo. I won't go to the park unless there's time, meaning, you know, free time. There's time to do it, right? And here it's a little easier because, oh, unless there's time, oh, it's not yo, okay? But here, even though I have no change of subject, I've got a menos que, and that means whatever activity is coming up afterwards has not yet occurred. If the action hasn't really happened, isn't really a part of what's going on at this time, then we need subjunctive. Even though I'm talking about yo here and yo here, I still need subjunctive. The a menos que is dictating that. Does that make sense? See? Bien? Yeah, and you see how, like, in a hurry, we can open a real can of worms. But sometimes we do have situations where certain of the verbs you will learn later on do require two subjects. So that quiero is one of those. I'm going to pull out another easy verb that requires subjunctive that will show you an example of that. Querer is one of those verbs. Another one might be this. Esperamos que esperamos que vengas a la fiesta. We hope that you come to the party, right? We hope that. Okay, is automatically a flag that says I've got a new subject, and here I'm not specifically saying tú, but it's understood from the verb, right? I've got nosotros in the first half, and I'm introducing a different person, tú, in the second half. But this que is what tells me, espero que vengas a la fiesta. I hope you come to the party. Okay. Notice when I don't introduce a different person, the que is going to go bye-bye. And I'll just plug in an infinitive. So let's take still esperamos. Esperamos venir mañana. We expect or hope to come tomorrow. You know, kind of stating your intention. Yeah. And here, because we will be doing that activity, we hope, right? I don't have a que. There is no change of subject. We are still the people who are hoping to come tomorrow or expecting to come tomorrow. And because I have no change of subject, it'll just be esperamos venir. We're still talking about nosotros in terms of that idea of venir, coming. Yeah. And because there's no change of subject, this stays as an infinitive. So this idea of a change of subject comes into play much more frequently when we have a change of subject. A menos que
Yeah.
doesn't really belong in that scenario.
I was going to say that on that one with the we hope to come tomorrow, that could be construed as a fact. So that we know that what we hope. But
Yeah.
when we're talking about somebody else, we're not sure they're gonna come or not.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah.
falls back in,
We can kind of be certain of ourselves.
yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so here's what, when I am imposing a wish or desire or an expectation on somebody else, I can't control that other person's actions.
Yeah.
I can control my own actions. That person can control their own actions, but I can't impose what I want on, I can't make that other person do that.
Right.
And that's where that comes into play. Let me show you one other little thing, because this is kind of like almost a philosophical thing. I know it's kind of weird, isn't it? Let me give you another verb that will do this kind of thing. So we had querer, we had esperar. Let's get this one. Insistir. I insist. Let's say I want to express the idea of I insist on paying. I insist on paying, right? Insisto. And it needs this little word en. I know, it just needs it. Okay. Insisto en pagar. I insist on paying. Who is insisting? It's me. Who's also going to do the paying? Same person, it's me. I don't need any subjunctive. I just flip that second verb into infinitive. Insisto en pagar. Wow, I insist on paying. Put
Gracias.
your wallet away, right?
Mhm.
But now, oh, here's another one. Insisto en que, and here's our big red flag. This word serves as a signal to tell you a new person is coming soon. This word que tells you a new person is going to come on the scene. That's what that word que serves as. Insisto en que Mariana me pague. Insisto en que Mariana me pague mañana. I insist that Mariana pays me tomorrow. I can insist from now until I turn blue. I can't control Mariana opening up her wallet and taking the money out. Yeah. I can insist all I want. Yeah. But I can't make somebody else do that action. Yeah. Que me pague. And that's why that happens. So here are three other little verbs. Querer, esperar, insistir. Because these actions of wanting, hoping, or wishing or insisting focus on desires and wishes and demands, but all those things like desires, wishes, and commands don't mean somebody else that you can't control is going to do that. That's where that's where it falls out. God, it becomes philosophy, doesn't it? Yeah. And if you saw all the rules, you'd say, ooh, here's why we didn't see them all right away. because yeah, it can become kind of a tank. But you can see how it's kind of difficult from the English.
Mhm.
Thinking in English, it's very, very hard to get to that point in English because we don't do the same thing. We just don't. Bien? Okay. What I want to do before I go to our other little prompts is to ask, you saw some little videos on some oddball formations with subjunctive, and the oddball formations were just little spelling hitches, spelling changes that happen with those car, gar, zar verbs. And with the verbs that are truly, truly irregular in subjunctive, and it's a real short list of the verbs that are irregular in subjunctive. It is a super short list, and they reduced it to the idea of dishes, which is a mnemonic device. To help you remember which verbs get a different form. I'm trying to find a good list. Okay, I'm going to show you a little list. I'm going to show you a little list first of why we don't. It's just a different way to think about this. These verbs here, and you see all kinds of subjunctive forms. These are technically not what we would call irregular in subjunctive. You think of conozco as being an irregularity, or digo, or hago, or pongo as being irregular forms of verbs. But once we're talking about subjunctive, technically, these aren't irregular because they follow the form of I look at yo first. And I drop the o off the end of yo, and I can get from that into subjunctive. So because the yo form does drop the o and does flip us into an easy thing to tag on a subjunctive ending, these are technically not considered irregular because they follow the rule of start with yo in present, drop the o, and now you can form a subjunctive, any subjunctive that you want. Yeah. But once we get into truly irregulars, that is not the case. These are what are truly considered the irregulars, and they are irregular because this yo form is not a good platform to jump into. Now I can just manufacture a subjunctive conjugation. Doy does not transfer into de, except for that one letter D. Yeah. Doy does not end in o. And here's why these are irregular. These forms these are why these are truly the true irregular forms. It's because the yo form doesn't end in o. So I can't say take the yo form, drop the o. I got no o at the end to drop. So that's why this happens. Oh, yeah. And here's an odd one. You've probably not seen this word very much, but yeah, that's a thing in what they call the perfect tenses. So here's why dishes are irregular. It's because the yo form for all these verbs doesn't end in an o. So, all right, the way to think about this is the irregulars in subjunctive are not that big a deal or not that hard to learn because dar, AR verbs still use an sound. They still use the opposite vowel. That part of the pattern still holds. AR verbs like dar still get endings. AR verbs like estar still get endings. right? Ir, an IR verb. Saber, an ER verb. Ser, an ER verb. Still get the opposite vowel, endings. They still get that. It's just that we can't start with the yo form to get in there. So, yeah, that's one thing that might help you. Think about it. These are the true irregulars. De, des, de, demos, den, este, estes, este, estemos, esten. We're still using opposite vowel. Okay, vaya is kind of an odd animal. Yeah, vaya, but it looks a little bit like boy. Oh, okay, vaya. But it still uses an ending. So we still go with that opposite vowel formation. Yeah. This is one of the ones that is a true oddball thing. And actually, you hear this verb saber quite a lot with the phrase para que sepas. Para que sepas is used quite a lot in conversation. And it's the Spanish equivalent for just so you know. When people are advising you because they think you're not up to the latest information, it is very frequent for people to say, para que sepas, so that you know. Para que sepas, tengo mi tarjeta de crédito y puedo pagar. Just so you know, I've got my credit card and I can pay. Para que sepas, just so you know, because I'm assuming you don't know. Para que sepas, yeah. Sepa is a very, very odd thing. How do you get sepa out of saber? I have no clue. I used to mentally think of it as a mnemonic of a device that I take saber, I take the B and I flip it upside down. I used to use it. Why? I don't know. But, then that doesn't help you with the SE, does it? But sepa
But you
is what
say
we-
that one quite a bit.
Yeah.
You've used that in class so much. That one seemed easy to me.
And there's a reason I use that one. So when you
Thank you.
I do that sort of on purpose, because actually, if you just learn that para que sepas is they're words that hang together to say, just so you know, you'll start to say, oh, I've heard that before. Where have I heard that before? I just heard somebody say it. Good enough. Good enough. Para que sepas. This one you wind up hearing a lot, sea, and we had one of your examples use that sea, yeah. But it's not really doesn't have much of a basis with soy, does it? And this aya you will hear quite a lot too. But for your purposes now, the only form you need is aya, right? There are two different words to use, or two different ways in which to use haber. Haber can be used as an impersonal verb, and that is that idea of I. Right? Hay audífonos. There are headphones here. Hay una jarra de crema. There's a jar. This we use the very first few classes of Spanish. I just means there are, and it's an impersonal verb. It means I'm not talking about yo or tú or nosotros or él. I'm just saying there is to say something exists. So we use I to just talk about something existing. And for right now, that's the only way you need to know the haya. That's it. There is another job for haber, and the other job is to actually take haber, or to use haber as a compound tense, meaning we call them in English perfect tenses. You haven't heard that since what, 5th grade? Yeah, right. I have worked is present perfect. He had worked on that project for ages, had worked. It's a past perfect. Okay, so you may hear eventually somewhere down the line, not now, I go into all these different forms to use subjunctive in the perfect forms and perfect tenses, but the subjunctive, oh my God, I know, look at that. And do you really want to do that now? No, but might you want to say, because your hands are chapped, wow, I hope I got some cream. Espero que haya una jarra de crema. Wow. I hope that there is something out there. Yeah. Yeah, you might. Espero que haya tiempo. I hope that there's time. Might you want to use that? Sure, you might want to use that. So, yeah. So those are okay. Any other questions on the little spelling tweaks or the true irregulars? And I know they're kind of just a memorization thing. The nice thing with the irregulars is that they're shorty words, they're shorty verbs. They're not multiple, long verbs. Okay, let's take a look at some of our prompts. And we've got some prompts here that are designed just to see that you can make a subjunctive form. That you can make a subjunctive form and recognize that we have stem changes, that we have irregulars that are truly irregular. And there we go. Okay. No creo que los vecinos, I don't think the neighbors puedan. Bien. Puedan. And we need a stem change here. It's not truly what we consider irregular because it follows the pattern, but we need a stem change. No creo que, and this verb poder in subjunctive winds up being used a lot. No creo que puedan escuchar el ruido de la fiesta. I don't think they can hear the noise from the party. No creo que puedan. No creo que puedan. Okay, and we need that UE. It's not really an irregular, but it's a stem change. What do we do with cerrar? And we want to talk about supermercado, the supermarket. Dudo que el super cierre. Dudo que el super cierre antes de las 8. I doubt that the supermarket closes before 8. Dudo que indicates doubt. You don't think that situation is really going to happen, so we need to put it in subjunctive, and it happens to have this little stem change because the yo form has that stem change. Es importante que haya. And here's a situation that just, we hope, got fixed for some people who live. Yeah, wow, this has been in the news. Allá. Es importante que haya agua para los que viven en Río Verde, ¿no? It's important that there might be water for people who really are living out there. Que haya agua. Bien. Fantastico. And here is one of the true dishes verbs. This is one of the true irregulars because I can't base it on a yo form. And now I've got another true irregular because this can't be based on a yo form. Bien. Es posible que
nosotros vayamos.
Es posible que nosotros vayamos a ver los fuegos artificiales el 4 de julio. It's possible that we'll go see the fireworks. Yeah. It's possible, es posible que, sets up some doubt. These are, es posible que is one of those, again, these are called impersonal phrases. And, I'm going to take this, I'm going to come back to this in a little bit. to show you something soon. Let's take a look at this. Ojalá que la mesera nos...
Sirvamos. Sirva.
should it be
Sirva.
sirvamos or sirva?
Sirvamos.
What should it be?
Oh,
Sirva or
Sirva.
sirvamos? Sirva. Who's doing the survey?
He's serving. He's serving.
Yeah, we have to conjugate this for
She's serving, Laime,
waitress.
that's correct.
Yeah, see, I know that nos is a little tease, isn't it? Right, but it just means we're sitting at the table waiting for stuff to come to us, right? Nos is receiving the action, so sirva is conjugated for ojalá que la mesera nos sirva pronto. Hopefully, the waitress serves us soon. And this gets a little stem change, that E to I stem change. Right? Not really what we call a true or regular, but it's an E to I. Ojalá que toda la familia
Estén.
Estén.
Este.
Esté aquí para la celebración. Hopefully
la
the
familia
whole
esté.
family might be here. Hopefully the whole family might be here. You could say in English might be here to indicate some doubt, right? But quite often people just say, hopefully the whole family's here. Ojalá que toda la familia esté aquí para la celebración. Exacto. Muy bien, muy bien. So we've got a number of things that are dishes examples. Those are all blue here. And we've got stem change examples. Sí, bien. And I'm going to steal this because this is going to go to a question that will help you. Let's take a look. Here's another situation where that little word que is, and a change of subject becomes a red flag issue. And it's a structural thing. Es posible que nosotros vayamos a ver los fuegos artificiales. It's possible that we might go see the fireworks. Es posible que vayamos. If I don't have this red flag que word, you may also hear somebody say this. Es posible ir a ver los fuegos artificiales el 4 de julio. Look at what happens. If I don't have a que, and if I don't have a change of subject, if I don't name a human being, this little thing of these es posible, es probable, es imposible, these little impersonal phrases, if I don't have that little que, and if I don't inject an actual human being, here is what happens. I just wind up with
Infinitives.
an infinitive.
Yeah.
Because I haven't got the red flag que word, and because I've got a no human being I'm naming, I'm just talking about this phrase here talks about anybody in general, and no one in particular is named.
Mhm.
And for that, all I need is an es description, right, with plus an infinitive. So that shows you, Mark, that's another example where that whole idea of change of subject can come into play. These little phrases that start with es.
Mhm.
Okay, so what are going to be phrases that are like that? They will be, they are legion. There are many. Es imposible. That's not supposed to put in a double S. Es imposible. Es importante. Es probable. And there are many, many, many others. So any of these S with kind of a descriptor, if I don't talk about a specific person, I can just make sure I'm not using a K and just plug in an infinitive. Does that make sense?
See.
That's a situation a lot where, because I am not talking about any person in particular, yeah, because I'm not putting in a specific person, yeah, I can just use an infinitive. Okay, adelante. Okay, let's finish up our little examples because we're getting, we're running over time. Okay, perdón. Okay, let's figure out what we've got here. Tenemos que poner la mesa antes de que la familia, and we want to say sits down.
Se sienten.
Se siente. Se siente a la mesa. Probably se siente.
That's right.
Se siente because familia es singular, ¿sí?
That's right.
Antes de que la familia se siente. Se siente before the family sits down. Okay? But notice if I don't name, if I don't have this magic K, this magic red flag, notice what happens. Antes de sentarse a la mesa.
Sentarse.
This
No
stays the same.
sentamos.
When I take out that word K, antes de sentarse a la mesa, preparamos la comida. Before sitting down at the table, we fix the food. Before sitting down, we are doing the sitting down. We are also preparing. We don't really need that word K. We can just, boom, pluck that out. Yeah. We can pluck out that K. If we're talking about the same person, yeah, we can pluck out that word K and just say antes de sentarse, or here it actually would be sentarnos if we're saying preparamos. So actually we would need to tweak that a tiny bit. Antes de sentarnos a la mesa, preparamos la comida. That's what happens there. Okay, let's take a look. If I got a para qué, I've got a que as a flag sitting in here. It's a red flag. Te voy a llamar por teléfono para que. I'm going to call you on the phone para que.
Estés.
Tú estés lista. And it could be listo. Depends on if it's a guy or a gal, right? That listo, lista. Te voy a llamar por teléfono para que estés listo or estés lista so that you can be ready. Okay. Here we've got our favorite phrase, para que
Sepas.
para que sepas, no hay espacio en el carro. Just so you know, there's not room in the car for everybody. Para que sepas, no hay espacio en el carro para todos, ¿sí? Okay. Tenemos que confirmar los documentos. Oh, we've got to sign the document. Oh, tenemos que firmar. We've got to sign. We've got to sign the documents in order to
confirm the contract.
Yeah, and there, do I have a K?
No.
No. So what that means is, if I pluck out that K, all I plug in is keep it as the infinitive. Tenemos que firmar los documentos para confirmar el contrato. Eso es.
Sí.
We're doing the signing, and we also have to validate that contract. And I don't need a que in here, yeah? All I need to do is keep that as it is. Let's take a look here. Last few ones, and then I'll let you guys go. No manejamos en el autopista 101. I don't drive on the 101.
Yeah, sí,
A menos que haya menos tráfico. A menos que haya menos tráfico. Unless you guys are tired, we're going to play some tennis. A menos que ustedes
estén.
estén cansados, unless you guys are tired. I don't really know how you feel right now. A menos que estén cansados, vamos a jugar al tenis mañana. Bien. Ok. No tomamos un taxi a menos que sea necesario. And this is a true dishes kind of verb. This is a true dishes kind of verb. It's a true seas, right? This again also was a true dishes kind of verb. Yeah. See? And this, also is in that dishes kind of verb, true or regular. See? Bien? Okay, so that a menos que is always a menos que, and I've got to use subjunctive. It just dictates that I do that. Bien?
Yeah.
Bien?
Sí.
All good? Bien?
Good.
Okay. Next week, I think we're going to take a little vacation, a little break from subjunctive.
Oh, darn.
Yay! And just go back to your video is just going to be talking about some naturals. And now that's not to say you won't hear it, yeah, but you may hear it, but our focus is just going to be going back to talking about some regular things. So it won't be a subjunctive video per se. It'll be a much slower video, pretty easy peasy to follow. No Luisito, a super simple one. Bien, talking about actual life experiences. Okay, bien.
Sí.
Bien.
Perfecto. De nada. Es un placer. It is a pleasure.
Nos vemos.
Ay, sí, nos
Gracias.
vemos. Sí, cuídense mucho.
Gracias.